Hello. So I just want to take you through some of this session's documents. So everything you can find will be on Canvas, and this is a different Canvas page, but you will see some of the same exhibits. So let's first look at an opening video. So let's look at that. So when you go onto Canvas for session 3, you'll have visual perceptual opening video. Let's take a look at that and see if I can get some audio. When you look at it, make sure you read the directions. It will be on the screen and follow along. Okay, here we go. Okay, so did you experience that? Oh, let's see if we can get that back home. So did you experience the optical, I guess, illusion, as you would say? So if you looked at that image and you looked at it one way, there was like a phantom color. And if you blinked or shaked your head side to side, you saw something different. So let me go back to session. Okay, here we go. So what is the point of that opening video? What do you think? Well, the reason why I use that video was to bring about the point that sometimes we talk about visual perception and we talk about atypicalness. Sometimes the students that we work with are atypical in the way in which they perceive things around them. So remember we talked about there could be atypicalness, a physical, and one of them could be sensory. So when you think about visual perception, how many disability categories could possibly that be something that's a characteristic or something that can really influence and come up in looking for that disability or assessing for that disability, in which visual perception is a major component or a minor player. So think about that. How many of the 13? Well, it could be a factor in many. Could be a factor in a learning disability. Maybe with a student with autism, could have some visual perceptual issues. Students with intellectual disabilities, it could be. It could even a student that has an emotional disturbance, could be. So it could be in some TBI, visual impairment, could be possible. So let's look at visual perception because it definitely does affect a lot of students. And when we are assessing and we are trying to evaluate and understand certain characteristics, visual perception is one that really needs attention. In addition, in this session, will talk about visual and auditory perception because there are two basics. When we talk about sensory, sometimes we may not spend enough time on that. So we're going to spend some time on it today. So what is visual perception? So if you click on this link, you will come up with this particular link. Okay, so visual perception is one of the senses of the body which allows the brain to intercept and interpret visible light, creating the ability to see. So as you read that, there's something really important that comes up in this definition. So please read this, and I'm going to scroll down. Okay, so I want to focus on this last paragraph here. Several different processes are involved in visual perception. Some are physiological, caused by the reaction of the eye to light, which converts light into signals which can be understood. Others are psychological, allowing the brain to make sense of the images it sees. The Gestalt theory in psychology explains how the brain deals with the visual input and the ways in which the brain smooths out and normalizes images to make sense of them. Okay, let me see if I can close this. Oh, okay. So there's the physical aspect of what we see, and then there's the psychological way that we make sense of it. So in the laws of Gestalt, I'm just going to click on this link just so that we can see what those laws are. It's very interesting. We're going to look at an assessment where we can look back at these laws and see how this actually influenced the particular assessment. So let's look at the laws of Gestalt and scroll down. So what I would like you to do is pause if you can, and then scroll down and read this either in this view, or you can read this part in on Canvas with the other links. So let's look at the law. So the beginning from the brief history to here, this part, you can take your time to read that. I'm going to scroll up to the first law, the law of similarity. So what do you see here? As soon as you look at it, the first thing you see is rows, white rows, black rows, correct? So the law of similarity suggests that similar things tend to appear grouped together. Grouping can occur in both visual and auditory stimuli. In the image above, for example, you probably see groupings of colored circles as rows rather than just a collection of dots. So psychologically, when we look at this and we perceive it, we automatically organize it in rows, not just a collection of dots. The second law of Prägnanz is a German word, Prägnanz. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. So for all those of you that speak German, please forgive me if I'm not saying it correctly, which means good figure. The law of Prägnanz is sometimes referred to as the law of good figure or law of simplicity. This law holds that objects in the environment are seen in a way that makes them appear as simple as possible. You see the image above as a series of overlapping circles rather than an assortment of curved, connected lines. So when you look at this, the first thing you see is circle here, circle here. So you don't look at it and automatically say, I see a vase here with an oval. So you go to simplest. Some people say, oh, I see the Olympics when I look at this. So this is how you psychologically, visually perceive this as overlapping circles. Okay, the next law, the law of proximity. Okay, so according to the law of proximity, things that are near each other seem to be grouped together. In the above image, the circles on the left appear to be part of one grouping, while those on the right appear to be a part of another. Because the objects are close to each other, we group them together. So visually, our perception, puts these things in groups together. Okay, so let's look at the next one. The law of continuity. So the law of continuity holds that points are connected by straight or curving lines, are seen in a way that follows the smoothest path. Rather than seeing separate lines and angles, lines are seen as belonging to each other. And then we have the law of closure. Okay. According to the law of closure, things are grouped together if they seem to complete an entity. Our brains then ignore contradictory information and fill in gaps in information. In the image above, you probably see the shapes of a circle and a rectangle because your brain fills in the missing gaps in order to create a meaningful image. Okay. Keep all this in mind because it's really going to come in handy. Okay, and when we look at our next assessment. Okay, so we're going to come out of this. Let me come out of this and go back to the main page. Okay. So this next part is a conversation about perceptual organization. It's quite lengthy, but I implore you to read it. It is a conversation that I found on LD Online, and it's really good because it gives you an idea from the best source, parents, how visual perception and visual integration affect a child at home as well as in school, and some of the things that actually help, some of the interventions of what we can do. Okay, so why is visual perception important? So visual perception is very important in education. Let me just see if I can download this and open it. Okay, let's open this. From current slide. Okay, so why is it important? Well, there are a couple of things that we need to know. First, some terms. So visual motor integration is the extent to which visual perception and fine motor skills are coordinated. So when we look at visual perception, how you see things, visual motor, how the way you see things also attached to the way you operate, or your fine motor skills, how you coordinate your fine motor skills, and sequential memory. So in the research that I did, I found 161 studies. And of these studies, they all showed that there was a relationship between visual motor integration and the reading process. So as teachers who are working with students who are having difficulty with reading, this is quite important for us. And a lot of times we think about students that have visual issues. It's not students just with visual impairments, but many students that may have some difficulty with reading, students with learning disabilities in particular. And of these studies, they found a very strong relationship between visual motor integration and word reading in young children. So in this study, they looked at how the children developed in reading, and they found that students who had visual motor integration problems did not have the same level of growth going from kindergarten to grade 2 as those who did not have visual motor integration problems. Also, children with reading disabilities, they found, did not have visual memory problems all the time, but they are less likely to adopt a verbal labeling strategy on such tasks. This is really interesting. So that when they tried to figure out what was going on with the students, they found that there was a problem with their labeling, unable to label strategies or label things. And in some of the speech tests, there is a section in which students label. So in that process, that seemed to be a big issue with impacting reading. So simple labeling of things in which the way visual, when you see something, and then that process of labeling it. So the research also says that naming speed has a great contribution with reading skills. So labeling and naming speed, the quickness in which you can retrieve the name of something. The rate of visual stimuli with naming presentation can have a marked impact relation with reading skills. So having different items on a card and quickly retrieving that information really does impact reading, and it is a visual motor integration arena, which is a needs area according to the research, and why visual perception, visual motor integration, and all of these pieces are very important. So children with intellectual disabilities have deficits in perceptual organization, which correlate to the level of intellectual functioning. Some other pieces of the research also show that visual motor integration skills may impact or operate in conjunction with executive functioning. So when we talk about executive functioning, that is defined as self-regulatory behaviors necessary for selecting and sustaining action and guiding behaviors across the rules. So planning, organizing, cognitive flexibility, self-regulation, and as well as working memory. So executive functioning plays a key role in children's cognitive behavior and social emotional development. So when we see deficits, we usually correlate that with academic difficulties and predictors of math and reading achievement. It is also related to motor development and motor skills. So let me come out of this. So although we are assessment and we're really talking about how is this assessed, I just want to look at what we can do about it as teachers. So it's sort of a side note. Let me just come out of this and go to the next. So here are 10 strategies for visual motor integration. So some of the things that we can do to help students. This link will be on Canvas for you, but please take a look at it. So for younger students, we can work, integrate non-writing ways to enhance visual motor skills, tracing, cutting things. Some of the things that we need to do is avoid complex worksheets. We need to think about how much stimuli is on the paper when we modify assignments, we want to strive for quality, not quantity. Sometimes there's just too many things on a page. There was a student that I worked with who told me, you're doing a great job helping me, but if you can just get the letters to stop moving on the paper, then we really will be doing a great job. So there were some visual issues that the student had, as well as intellectual disability, and it impacted his reading. And having frames where we just cut out from an index card a small frame and put it directly on the one word that he needed to decode, and having that frame go on each word, that helped him a lot. And that is a basic special education strategy to help get rid of the visual clutter that might be happening for a student who is having some type of visual perceptual issue. So please read through this. There are plenty of strategies, and you can click on more strategies as well. So the actual assessment that we are going to look at is the visual motor free assessment. So after looking at the strategies for visual motor integration problems, please look at the other links on Canvas, where you will look at how one test, the motor-free visual perception test, is administered. There is a copy of the test in the Tobin Library. So on one of the links, it may ask you to take a look at it and to answer some questions. For the remainder of the session, we are also going to look at auditory perception problems as well. And please follow the links for, for those exercises.